Uno is a popular family card game that has lived on people's shelves for years and years. In fact, it's probably one of the first games I've ever played. So on my turn, I play a wild and I change the color to yellow. In this video, we'll be looking at 5 things you should know about Uno or Wild and how it differs from the original game. When it comes to the first thing that you need to know about Uno or Wild, do you remember that time when you played a game of Uno and you really loved that sense of tension of drawing a card and hoping it was one of the wilds or one of the draw 4 cards in the deck so that you could ultimately have the power to change the game and how it flowed? Well, they've taken that element of tension and thrown it right out the window. In fact, in this game, they've taken all the 4 colors, red, yellow, blue, and green, thrown those out the window, as well as all the numbers as well. And that aspect of the game has been replaced with cards that are all wild. And to be honest, I don't even know why they even bothered putting the 4 colors on these wild cards, because they don't even represent anything. You can name a color and you can't even play that color because everything in this deck is wild. What was really interesting about that original version of the game was being able to change the colors meant that you might be able to offload certain cards from your hand, or using a card that was a yellow 7 and placing it in the discard pile where there's a red 7 meant that you could change the color, or playing a wild meant that you had the power to influence some sort of dominance over how the game progressed, whereas that has all been sucked completely dry and all color has actually been devoid from this version of the game. The second thing that you should know is that some of the original action cards have been retained in this version of the game. So reverse cards, skip cards, draw 4 cards, and draw 2 cards are still here to stay. However, the colors that appear on these cards have no function, value, or meaning whatsoever. So if you're going to play skip card, it's literally just going to skip the next player. If you're going to play draw 2 card, the next player is just going to draw 2 cards. And those cards are probably going to be wild, let's be frank. The third thing you should know is that there are 3 new action cards that are introduced into this version of the game. The first one is the target draw 2 card, where you get to target any player and force them to draw 2 cards. The other one is swap hands, so you can actually exchange your hand of cards with another player's hand of cards. So if someone's only got 2 cards and you've got 5, then you definitely play this card and swap hands with them, causing for a pretty frustrating experience, to be honest. And the final card is the double skip card. So if you're playing with 2 players, I'm not really quite sure how that works. Does that mean you just skip them and you skip yourself so it's the other player's turn again? Not really sure if this one makes sense at a 2-player level, but I can see how this can be quite powerful at a multiplayer level. The fourth thing that you should know is that this game introduces a special rule to give players one last chance to stop a potential player from winning the game. And that is, if the next player in turn order is about to win because they've got 1 card left, the player before them can draw a card from the top of the draw pile, and if it is a card that helps the other players, they can play it straight away. Otherwise, the next player wins. That creates for a little bit of tension between the group and the actual remaining player, and I think that's what this game does differently compared to the original game. It kind of creates this group mentality where the group kind of works together to try and stop potential players from winning, and that's probably an interesting interaction that does get introduced into this version. The fifth thing that you should know is that there are 2 ways of winning the game. This version of the game has finally introduced the rule that when a player empties all their hands, they can actually officially win the game. Unlike in the original Uno, where the original official rules were that you had to get 500 points to win the game. However, if you do want to still play the original version, you can still do that here, where each normal wild card is worth 20 points, and any action cards are worth 50 points in other players' hands, and all those points goes to the player who just emptied all their hands first. Let's play out a couple of turns of a 3-player game of Uno or Wild, just so you can see how the game plays out. So if this is the first player, they might play a wild card. Doesn't matter what color they call out because there are no colors in this game. And then this player might then play a wild. This player over here might then play wild. This person over here might then do a double skip, so that would skip that player, play another double skip, skip that player. Then they might be able to play a draw 4 to make that player, the next player in turn order, draw 4, which they do. And then this player over here might then use the swap card to swap hands with this player. And this player over here, unfortunately now has inherited the really big hand that the second player had. And now they're ending up with these cards. Over here, this player might target the second player to draw 2 cards. And then this player over here might then also force, as payback to the second player, force them to draw 2 cards. The next player in turn order, player 2 might skip player 3 and player 1. Then they might also play a reverse card and then switch the turn order. And this kind of keeps happening until one person has 1 card left. And then after that, the turn goes around. The player before the player who only has 1 card left has a chance to draw a card from the top of the deck if they choose, and if it is a card that will help them to stop that player from winning, they can use it. So what did you think of Uno or Wild? Did you think it was as wild as you thought it should be? To me personally, I think it's actually too simplistic and I prefer the original game, just because the original game had the right balance of numbers, colors, actions and wilds that still makes that original game such a fun experience to have. But if it's something that definitely piques your interest, then check it out. Thank you once again for joining me for another Board Game Sanctuary video. If you really like this video, please hit the like and subscribe button. We've got more amazing modern board game video content to bring your way, so stay tuned. This is Danny signing out. I'll see you next time.